once the assets are involved, then it becomes, when you've got a decent amount of assets, now you've got all these different settlement options, and each asset with it carries its own characteristics because, you're looking at source of assets, you're looking, tax issues. A lot of times, you'll be like, okay, we plan on dividing it this way. Okay, how is that going to play out? Is that going to play out tax wise? How is that going to play out in the future, projection wise? You brought up a great point. We see a lot of times the marital home is always a difficult one because you've got a couple issues going on there. Number one is, again, one person may want the marital home, but then you start looking at, okay, what's the upkeep going to be? If you get what you want, how's that going to look going forward? Are we going to be able to keep the marital home? Um, and the second part is a lot of times if there's not enough money to do a buyout, then that has to be refinanced. So, okay, now do I have the capacity? You were talking about like interest rates and everything going on, the equity in the home existing, what has to transfer, and then if there's any obligations that you're paying, like, okay, am I going to be able to negotiate a loan to refinance and actually buy this out from my spouse? So even sometimes what you want may not be very likely. And these are the things that you want pointed out early, very early, so you know what you're doing, and the settlement options exactly. Before you go into mediation, you want to have two or three, or more, maybe even I've done as many as four different options, depending on the properties and assets involved to say, okay, this is, you know, here's if we just split everything 50-50, just kind of a benchmark, not going to happen, but that's how it would be. And then here's some other options if there's, more than one property involved. Well, what if you take this out? What if you take that house? What if this happens? And then as you go on, you're going to keep updating that. But there's things you think about the basis in the house. You get an exemption, a single exemption, 250 if you sell the house, but if you're married, it's 500. If you've got assets that are, with cost basis in them, when you do a divorce, pursuant to a divorce, it's transferred tax free, but you inherit that basis, so that could be something you have to think about down the road. So absolutely. Once the assets get involved, then it becomes more necessary because, the lawyers will do a great job in coming up with an equitable settlement, but without understanding the intricacies, maybe you could have worked it, a little bit better or gotten what you want. And that's really, I always tell my clients, it's your divorce. Once it's over, the judge is done with you, the lawyer's done with you, I'm done with you. We're going to move on with our lives and you're going to live with what you come up with. So make sure you're involved, make sure you're part of that negotiation there because you're the one that has to live with what comes out of this. None of your advisors have to. It's only you.